Thank you all for joining us today for our contest season tip webinar. We just wanted to give some tips and details for this year's contest season that can hopefully be used for seasons beyond as well. I'm joined today with Sadie Troy from the Harry S. Truman Presidential Library and Museum, as well as Angie Ellison from Blue Springs, who has much experience at the regional, state, and national level. Thank you both for joining me today. And we'll each be talking about tips from both of our regions and just answering any questions that you may have as people hop on. I also want to thank our members and donors from the State Historical Society of Missouri who make our virtual programs possible. Thank you for all your support and contributions. And I want to start with Angie Ellison. Go ahead and take the floor.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Like Daniel said, my name's Angie Allison. This is my 26th year of teaching, but I've been working with the National History Day organization for just a little over 10 years. And so I got involved with NHD in kind of an interesting way. I entered a contest through National Council for Social Studies and ended up winning or getting selected, I think is a better way to say that, for an intensive study of the D-Day, of the Normandy invasion. And so a student and I did that for about 6 months, and it culminated in a great trip to Europe, to the beaches of Normandy. And the only strings attached to that were that we get involved with the National History Day organization. So I feel very fortunate to have gotten involved in that way and then become so passionate about it over time. So I wanted to talk first about what I always found so difficult as an NHD teacher, which is helping students select their topic. So this year's theme is rights and responsibilities. And I, as a teacher, haven't been through this theme before because NHD tends to recycle themes. And so in talking with students about potential topics, I think it's really important that you remember that they have to cover both parts to that theme, the rights and responsibilities. So, I think as a teacher, once you have them select a topic that covers both of those parts of the theme, then you are just there as a teacher to kind of set up the bumpers. I always think of it like bumper bowling, where you're on either side of the alley, and then you just help the ball bounce down the alley, right? So you bounce ideas off of each other, help them come up with sources. I always use the month of January as a time to help them fill in their annotated bibliography, help them with the little things, the annotations themselves, the formatting in either MLA or Chicago style. I think those are the two that the National NHD organization prefers. And then February was always our making the project time, filling in those research holes where when you're constructing the project, whether that's a board or a documentary, anything where you can see that the students just haven't researched it enough. I always gave myself and my students February to do that. And I think it's perfect timing because I think our regional contest is in March, right at the beginning of March. So, other than that, if people have questions, or if Danielle and Sadie, you have things you want me to talk about more specifically when it comes to selecting a topic or the construction of the projects, or those little idiosyncrasies that sometimes students might overlook. Like, I don't know, what are you guys thinking?
What do you suggest when students ask if they should be in a group or do something individually? Because
I'm sorry, go
I've
ahead.
I've heard pros and cons. I've heard students who, really want to be with their friends in a group, but then maybe those friendships don't last throughout the year.
I've
Um,
actually had that exact situation happen in the classroom where a group of 3 people were working on a project, and then when they started to construct the project, there were design differences. And so I wouldn't say it ruined a friendship, but it made one of the members of the group leave. So NHG allows for up to 5 students to be in a group project together. As a teacher, I have never allowed a group of 5. It just doesn't seem like the division of labor would be equal in any way, shape, or form. And after that incident that I had with that group of 3 students, I really, really, really vetted the students very well to see if a group of 3 would work well. You know, who's going to be the person in charge of constructing the bibliography? Who's going to be the person in charge of getting the supplies to make the board? Who's going to be the person that's the editor if they're making a documentary? I think talking that through at the very beginning with the kids is going to help them organize their project and organize their time a lot better. You know, some students are, they just don't want to work in a group and they just prefer to work by themselves. So those individual students are always going to work by themselves, but it's those friend groups of 2 or 3 that you really have to help them talk it through so that you don't get to a point where there are differences because this person is in charge of this part of the project, and you kind of have to, I don't know, kind of guide them and allow them to talk through when they do have problems. So that's what I did.
Okay, I have a question for you too, Angie, as a teacher.
I
Um,
like how you raised your
and
hand.
I know I just want to be polite. Um, because, and this question comes, as someone who's totally not biased working at a local history museum. But when you're helping your students pick their topics, um, and I have experience kind of in the running the contest and also from the judging side, but the idea of kind of balancing the national versus the local story, or kind of especially the local sites for being able to research or actually get into archives. So as a teacher, are there ways that you help steer students to those kind of local themes that gravitate, like use the big ones as like the national ones as inspiration for local? How do you work with that?
Well, I always started with kind of a really generic questionnaire. What are you interested in? Are you interested in women's history? Are you interested in the more political side of history? And we literally kind of do, and it seems kind of, I teach high school, so I had a teacher one time criticize me for this being too simplistic, but you kind of start with the big ideas and then you got to funnel them down, right? So a lot of students that I've found that I've worked with here in the Kansas City region don't know a lot about our local history and they don't know a lot about those local topics. So you really have to talk them up. Now, of course, at Truman Library with all the fantastic resources that are available there. Like, you know, kids are attracted to topics that deal with war. And so, but I have always cautioned them when they're dealing with those kinds of topics, those more broad topics that seem to, I don't know, catch people's attention a little bit more or have been used a little bit more in the NHD competition. You have to be so precise in your research because people will know. So, for instance, when I had students do the Manhattan Project, um, I encourage them. I don't force students. I just try to guide them and tell them what to do. They made their own appointment. They went to Truman Library. They were looking at the actual documents themselves. I don't think I've had students that were more involved and passionate about a topic, not because it was the Manhattan Project, but because they got to touch the documents themselves. But there are really good topics that maybe Truman Library doesn't have resources on, but the Kansas City Museum does. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of educating them on the more local and regional topics, telling them where they can go for their resources, and then kind of letting them take charge because it's their project. So I think local topics are fantastic. I think at the national level, the more local topics are so intriguing to the judges that it kind of almost gives them a leg up because it's something they've not heard before. It's a story that they're not familiar with. And at the national level, maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I mean, you want the judges to say, wow, I didn't know that. And some of our local history here has a lot of that availability. That was a really long answer. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I loved it. I mean, I think that's kind of, yeah, I think when you think kind of big picture, sometimes even state, but going beyond to nationals, you know, when you have history, for these big events, you may see, 15 projects on the Radium Girls, right? And these big moments. And so we always, as kind of coordinators, always encourage people to look to like the state historical sites like Danielle works at, or the public libraries for their archives to see, what is that, yeah, as you kind of looked at, like, what is that interest that you're in? Is it that scientific history? Now, what locally do you think contributions could have been done in this area, just for that little bit of kind of new ways of looking at those broad political history, scientific history, and setting yourself apart a little bit.
Sure. And I have one more question for Angie. What's your advice just to someone that's completely new to NHD, just going into contest season and what to expect? Maybe one aspect of it, like what should their students expect going into judging for the
Okay,
first
so
time?
yeah, for sure. That's when I was a new teacher, I met with Mark Adams, who at the time was the coordinator for our region for NHD, and he gave me a lot of tips on the project side, but I had no idea about the judging. And as a teacher, you want to prepare your students obviously as well as you can. And a lot of our students aren't necessarily at their in their age group, especially if you're in, you know, obviously secondary division versus junior division. You would think secondary students would have a lot more experience in talking to strangers, but they don't. And so I can't imagine being a middle school teacher and prepping for this without listening to something like our conversation about it. Judging ends up being great. I have never had a student at our regional level in Kansas City come out and say, oh my gosh, this was the most terrible experience and interview ever, because they're super worried about the interview. All of the judges are prepped really well to be positive and upbeat with the students. Now they still get to be critical and ask some critical thinking questions, but the kids are usually really well prepared. So all you have to do as a teacher is ask them the questions you think judges would ask them. What took you to your topic? Why did you choose your topic? How does it fit rights and responsibilities, or whatever the NHD theme is? What's your best source? What source would you have liked to have found? I mean, obviously, after 10 years, I kind of know the drill a little bit for judging, but also they only have 15 minutes. So there's only so many questions that the judges can ask. You know, how long did it take you to make your project? So if you're able, and I'm happy to like submit a list of questions that I've heard over time from students that they've gotten asked. But the judging part and the interview part for students is incredibly stressful, probably even more stressful than choosing their topic and constructing their project. But again, I've never had a student in the Kansas City region that has been overwhelmed by the judges in a bad way. All the kids walk out with smiles on their faces, and that's one of the reasons I haven't judged in a long time, is because I love to see their reactions after they come out of their interview, because they're beaming, like they feel such a sense of accomplishment. It's so fun to watch. I don't even know if I answered your question.
I will say that I started out as an NHD judge, and it's one of the most fun things that I've ever done. It's just so fun to interview the students and see them excited and so enthusiastic about their research. So volunteer to judge. It's fun. Sadie, did you have any other questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, and kind of, just taking it like one step back from the actual judges. And by the way, the NHD website for any student or teachers that are out there has sample judging forms for each type of exhibit, documentary, website. So for each category, so you're always welcome to print those off and like have your students play judge with each other, right? And ask the questions and kind of see a little bit of what judges are looking for. So those are the National History Day website is a really wonderful website that has a lot of resources. But yes, to everything Angie just said, I mean, the judges are people like me. They're the museum people who aren't in the classroom, right? They're the tour guides at your local sites. They're your school librarians, your public librarians. They are people who are just like love learning, love getting people excited about learning. And no one's judging for a gotcha moment, right? They're sending you questions so that you can show off what you've done, what you know. And so like I mean, I do the coordination, so I like kind of had to pull myself away from judging because I was just like, student shows up, you know, I'm such a terrible evaluator. But it's those type of people that are just so gung-ho about seeing students so excited. So think of it more as a fun time. But what I want to get to Angie to answer is for teachers, because I know we also have the chat and the Q&A open. And so we did have a question pop in the Q&A, which I do want to get to as well, or if I can. But kind of when talk about the registration from the teacher standpoint, because students are going to individually register themselves, but the teachers are going to register themselves and the school. So Angie, if you don't mind talking about it from kind of what teachers should and students can expect from that.
Absolutely. It is a good idea. I mean, I would say that you 100% should register yourself as a teacher first in your school. It's just going to speed up the process over time. I always had my students register with me in the room, and for no other reason than reminders about, hey, like at our school, at my former school, the kids couldn't use their school emails because they couldn't get emails from outside of the district. So just knowing that, like, use your personal email. But students, I mean, I'm going to age myself here. They use email in a different way than I use email. I use email to communicate. They use email to just, I don't know, get emails, but never read them. So use an email address that you have access to that you're going to, or for the students that they're going to remember the password to, because that's how NHD at both the state and national level are going to communicate directly with the student. So have them flag those emails, have them star those emails so that they know where to find them when they need them. Individual students, their registration will probably take 5 minutes. They need to know basics, name, address, one of their parents' email addresses, I think parents' cell phone number. Like if you have that information right in front of you or they just know it, literally takes 5 minutes for an individual. The group registration tends to be a little bit trickier. So you would want to have one of your students register first from the group. They will get a very long, I think it's called a group key. And it's just a set of numbers, like an access code. So the students can register and then link their registrations together. So all of their names are listed on their project, or they can basically, I mean, there's one entry with multiple names, and that access key or group key is a way to do that. But again, once you have your process down, 5-10 minutes tops. So if you're doing it in class, you want to probably manage your time. We always did it in our like advisory, which is like our like tutorial time, homeroom, whatever you want to call it. But I always built in time because I wanted to be in the room, because inevitably they're not going to remember their mom's cell phone number, and we have to remember where they left off, and I have to be able to remind them. And Also, I'm a type A personality, but still, I felt like it made them feel better that they weren't by themselves registering for something, because they really honestly get nervous because they're doing contest registration, some of them for the first time. So highly encourage you being in the room, making sure they're kind of prepped on what information to have. And that group access key, it's not like a 6-digit code. It is probably 16 digits, numbers and letters. So, take a picture of it, send it to so-and-so, and kind of go from there. So seamless, but it does take a little bit of planning and organization to start.
Thank you. I think the key, what you said is getting the teacher done first so that the school is already in the system when the student logs on is going to save so much. And I love that the kids are nervous, right? It's their first professional thing. I will say, as someone who's on the back end, we can change anything. Like, it's okay. Like, fill it out like we can't. But if tricky situations happen, we can always make changes once the registration is complete. And the question that came in the Q&A is about kind of submissions and when things are due at different times. And so I do want to touch on that just a little bit from a coordinator standpoint. Now, our teacher's asking about, I don't know the St. Louis dates, because again, I'm for the Kansas City area, but hopefully this kind of may generally help. So when the registration deadline ends, that's when all students and teachers need to be registered. So everyone participating needs to be registered. At that time, the papers and the websites will have to fully submit their projects. And websites and papers after the registration date are no longer allowed to make changes. The exhibit board, the documentary, the performances, since they don't have to fully submit their things in advance like that, they're allowed to kind of do some changes until the day of. Now, of course, Danielle will talk later that for the students that go on to state, it's open again. They can make changes based on their score sheets or anything. But for the district level, when students register, the ones who submit the website and the papers, they are fully submitting their project then, and their bibliographies, I believe. So everything's submitted then, and then the exhibits, the documentaries, and the performances, that will all be turned in fresh day of. Now, the websites and the papers should still bring copies on the day of the competition. And they will still go through the websites and the papers, and they will still have the judging back and forth on the day of the competition. But submission goes on the registration date and can't be changed. I hope I didn't make that confusing. Also, Danielle, hope I got that correct. And so, Matt, hopefully that kind of maybe helps a little bit generally of your question and why you may be seeing different dates for submissions.
And Mac, I'll email you after for specific St. Louis deadlines as well. So we'll get that straightened out too. But yeah, I'll go over some specific registration state guidelines as well in a bit. But yes, Sadie's correct.
And I'll just, Angie, if you're cool, I'll just kind of take it away, like what happens when registration closes. So in our district, registration closes on February 10th. And then our competition is March 1st. So just generally, I'm just throwing out those dates so you can see that it's about 3 weeks, maybe 3.5, 4 weeks from when the dates close to when the competition is. And so in that time, that's kind of when our tornado work begins. Those coordinators kind of understand what I'm saying, in that we can't start scheduling who's going in what order. We can't start making the groups until registration is fully done. But once that registration is done on the computer, that's when we will start putting together the groups. That's when we will start breaking up the categories. And then all our communication moving forward, all the kind of National History Day communication moving forward will go from coordinator to teacher. So the teachers will be the ones who will get the schedule of when students need to be on site for what kind of judging time slot they have. Teachers are always welcome to email their coordinators and ask questions. The lines of communication are definitely wide open, but that work is going to be happening for the 3 weeks. So don't expect that schedules are going to come out right away. We can't start till registrations are fully submitted. Some categories you're allowed to have parents, family, other students in the room to view, and some categories you're not. So exhibits and websites, I believe, are the two categories where it is just the judge and the student or students. But documentaries, exhibits, documentaries and performances, they welcome family members, other students, teachers in to listen. But it's a wonderful day. There's full of energy. A student or teacher does not have to be there the full day. Students, we just want them to check in with us and then be there for their judging slot. They are free to come and go the rest of the time. They'll just have that certain slot where their judging is. And again, that will come at least a week before the contest. It'll be sent to the teachers, and then the teachers will share it to the students and families. What am I forgetting? I feel like these feel like big events and I should be giving you so much information, but they're fun days where things really kind of work like clockwork, luckily. Knock on wood. Whoa.
It always runs like clockwork. There's so much planning with getting the judges there. I mean, but as a teacher, and observer, the Kansas City region has always been exceptionally smooth, and that will continue this year, I'm sure. I will say, as a teacher, it was always very important to me for students to be there between 8 and 8:30 at the latest. I want them to see, I mean, obviously exhibit boards have to set up, and then everyone from the area where the exhibits are has to leave so judges can do interviews. So I want them to have everything set up and their paperwork out to see where they're going to stand. Same thing for documentary. Where's your room at? Does your equipment work? Same thing for websites. Like, can you access your website? Can judges see it again? Because they would have already seen it via the registration. Just for comfort level, I think getting there a little bit early pays off. And then, like Sadie said, it's a come and go as you please.
Yes, and be sure students need to bring everything with them. The process paper, the bibliography, they need to come with that to give to the judges, even if they're submitting it in advance. Unless you directly hear otherwise from your teacher, bring it with you day of. Other questions about the day of? Bring snacks. It's a long day. Bring snacks, bring drinks. You're welcome to leave for lunch and come back. Bring little siblings. Get these younger kids excited on the fun day. And there will be a time where we will open up the exhibit hall so that people can go through and see the projects, listen to other projects, watch the documentaries. This is just a day to celebrate all that hard work of the students. They've already done it. This is the day where they're just showing off again. So go see the things, go listen to what they have to say and how they're describing it and how they're showing their work. Because it is really, it's a fun community day.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, go see other projects, go see how other people present history.
Yes. And so once we will, throughout the day or at the award ceremony, starting at 3:00, That's where students find out if it's the top first, second, and third place are the ones that are announced, along with the special awards. All students will receive certificates. And in the groups that are moving on to state, they will also get a little piece of information that talks about what comes next with the state contest. So I will pass that on to Danielle to then talk about, what's next.
All right. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of general information, and then I wanted to talk about just some tips about registration, and then I'll get to the actual format of the state contest and what that kind of looks like on the day of. First of all, the state contest will be held on April 26, 2025 this year. If you're completely new to the NHD program and you're wondering about when the state contest is usually held, it's either the last Saturday of April or the second to last Saturday of April every year. We usually can't reserve space until the October, November prior to the contest. So always block those 2 Saturdays out. It'll be one of those Saturdays. It'll be in person on Mizzou campus. And then we also have t-shirt pickup at the State Historical Society of Missouri, which is just on the edge of campus. And we've started doing that because it's a nice place for t-shirt pickup, but we also have an art gallery, bookstore, and a nice area to kind of just sit down and relax if you're looking for a place to have downtime after your interview or before the award ceremony. So check that out. It's open until 2 p.m. On contest day if you're looking for something to do. So just some tips about registration. I came to the state contest Z-Fair's registration page. It'll look familiar because you also will see this for your regional contest as well. And I came to the homepage and you'll just kind of see the login information as well as the different tabs that you can click on, the general homepage. Here I have like all the guidelines for each project submission listed, but you'll also see the student tab, teacher tab, and the judge tab up here. Once you get through your regional contest, like Sadie mentioned, you'll get an info sheet about the state contest. And this info sheet will have all this information that you'll see on this home page. So you'll get it several times, but make sure that you're going to read all of this. It'll have the contest deadline. So March 26th is when you need to register. It'll have the registration fee for the state contest. And then whatever category you're going to have to upload whatever materials are applicable to your specific category. So make sure to read all of that before you register. And make sure after regionals you read that document that you get. You'll also get a document about visiting Columbia, and that will have just information about campus. It'll have hotel information, and make sure to book your hotel as soon as possible. They just fill up really fast in the spring. It'll also have information about dining options and places on campus that you can visit for food and just kind of pit stops in between judging. So take a look at that. Now, I know that once you walk across that award stage, it's going to be a lot of excitement and you're just going to try to register for the state contest as soon as possible. And I'm just going to say, stop, don't do it. Just stop. Take a break, relish in all the excitement. You just got awarded and you're advancing to that state contest, and it's going to be really exciting. But a couple of things need to happen first, and that is your regional coordinator needs to promote you to the state contest. So that means I can't see you on my contest site quite yet. And so if you're a teacher or a student, it means that you're not in my system yet. So if you try to register, it means that you can't log in yet. So When you try to do that, it's just going to say there's an error or they can't find you. And it's going to make you create a new account. And that creates a lot of problems on my end. It makes you create a duplicate account, and that will mess up the system. So don't register quite yet. Wait till your regional coordinator promotes you. Give them a couple of days to do that. Let them rest after that busy contest set up for you. Give them the weekend. Usually your contest coordinator will email everybody and say, hey, I promoted all of you. If you're unsure if they've promoted you, you can always email them to ask if you've been promoted. Once you've been promoted, uh, you can have your teacher register. If you're a student, you can register. Log in with your same username credentials that you did for your regional contest. So don't create a new account. Again, if you create this new account, it just creates duplicate accounts. And as a state contest coordinator, I then have several accounts with your project, and it's hard to assign judges to many accounts with your same username. So just use the same login credentials that you did for your regional contest. So two main takeaways. You're going to want to read all the guidelines that you're given by your regional coordinator. You can also read them on this homepage and on the nhdmo.org website. You'll get them in multiple formats, and then just make sure that you're promoted before you start creating accounts and log in. And then also another takeaway when you register is to use those same login credentials that you got with your regional contest. Another tip when you register is to read your individual tab, whether you're a student or teacher. It has some specific information for you. If you're a student, it tells you to register as an individual. If you're a group, you have to register as a group. So the whole group has to register individually and pay the fee for each student. It gives you information for t-shirts. If you're a student, you must provide your t-shirt size so you can pick up your t-shirt at the state contest. If you're a teacher and you're paying for your students with your school, you can click on the store tab once you log in and pay for your students that way. And if you're a judge, it gives information about judging under your tab. So there's a lot of information just on this registration page here. So just some tips there, and something before we leave this registration area. If you, for some reason, just can't log in with your regional credentials, there's this help button to the right, and you can recover your username and password. If for some reason that glitches up or you just can't recover those old passwords and usernames, you can always contact your coordinator, be it the state or regional coordinator, and they can recover those for you or reset it for you. So we can always fix it on the back end, like Sadie mentioned in the beginning. So again, just don't create that new account. We can fix it for you so that it doesn't create a duplicate. All right. Anything that I kind of missed, Sadie or Angie, with that registration part that I could add?
I can't think of about registration, but one thing I don't think we've covered and we should, so I'm going to ask Danielle. What about like students actually being there day of during the contest? So, like, let's say you have a group of 4, do you need all 4 of the students there to present for the judges? Do you have to, if you miss your time slot, does that mean that you forfeit your project? So since we haven't covered that yet, I thought we could have you.
Sure, yeah, that's a really good question. So, the first question, does everybody have to be there in person to be qualifying for the contest? So if you're a group, we usually ask that at least one person in the group is there to represent the group and answer questions for the interview. Um, but if your performance, that kind of changes the quality of the performance. So let's say you get up to the state contest. You originally had a group of three, but only two people can be at the state contest. I would then ask the group to rewrite the script to make it fit for the two people in the end. So it kind of depends. It would depend on the situation. But if it was an exhibit, then yeah, I would allow one person to represent the group of three people. Um, and the second part again, Sadie, can you say that?
If you're an individual.
Oh, if you're just an individual and can't show up.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're an individual and just cannot be there, we do not do Zoom for legal reasons, and that's an NHD stipulation. So you just can't, you wouldn't be able, you would be disqualified.
I think in the past, I've had students late for their interview time or their interview slot, but at the regional and state levels, everyone has worked them in at the end. So
Mhm.
I think NHD as an organization really tries to make sure that the students get their time in the spotlight. So it's not the end of
Mhm.
the world. But if, like last year I had students in speech and debate, and there was music contests, I think, going on at the same time on Mizzou's campus. Like it was just a really hectic time. But, again, communication with your students and then their parents to try to
Mhm.
coordinate. I mean, we had a parent in a car waiting for a student to drive them across campus so they wouldn't miss their time for state music. So
Sure.
it's just a matter of
Sure.
coordination. So
Sure.
my
If you're
best
late,
advice.
yeah, sure. If you're late, we try to work you in. But if you're just an individual project that can't make it, we just can't do Zoom because of privacy for for student and the judges. Um, all right, so a little bit about the contest format now. Kind of like I mentioned before, we have the Welcome Center T-shirt pickup at the State Historical Society of Missouri. That's open until 2 p.m., so you can come and go as you please. You don't have to come before your interview time. I know a lot of students try to rush over there and pick up their T-shirts. You don't have to do that. Um, don't rush and be worried about trying to get there before your interview time. Just go to your interview, cool off, and then go get your T-shirt. Um, and the thing I mentioned is we have an art gallery, a research center. So if you want to see primary sources up close, that's a great time to go and kind of look at sources, see some Missouri art. We also have a bookstore. We have a huge auditorium you can kind of just go and chill out in if you want a place to sit down. It's also really close to downtown, so you can go and visit downtown. It's close to Shakespeare's Pizza, so you can check out that. Um, and then we actually have the classrooms and the Mizzou Rec Center where our projects are judged. So documentaries and websites are in Strickland Hall. We have performances and papers in the Arts and Science Building, and the exhibit hall is at Mizzou Rec Center. Typically, judging takes place, morning judging is from 9 to noon. Those all include interviews with our judges. And then we have finals from around 1 to 3 p.m. Those are no interviews, but documentary students have to be there to turn on their documentaries, and performance students have to be there to perform. And then the award ceremony venue really depends on what space is available on campus. This year it'll be at Jesse Auditorium. And we've had it there a couple years ago, so that'll be nice to revisit that space again. At the awards ceremony, we will give out special prizes. We'll have first and second place students going to nationals, and third place acts as our alternate, ready to go as called upon. Um, so it's a really fun day, but there's a lot of downtime as well, right after the morning judging, and then kind of before that awards ceremony going on. So we encourage people to do things like visit the art gallery. There's the Mizzou Art and Archaeology Museum. There's downtown, like I mentioned. There's the famous quad with the Mizzou columns and different Mizzou departments that they can visit if they're looking to see campus life and see what different departments are like. They can arrange campus tours. So that's really your chance to kind of see Columbia and to look up Columbia Convention and Visitors Bureau if they want to go that route and go around the city. So there's lots to do if they want to see the city. And judging really kind of takes the format, like Angie explained. You'll get your typical questions like, how does your project relate to the theme? What was your most important primary source? And then you'll get more project-specific questions from the judges as well once they look at them. And we get our pool of judges. We get educators, we get professors, we get museum curators, we get experts like artists, people in theater. So we try to get like a good variety of different people. We get students in advanced degree programs, and we always try to pair new judges with experienced judges that have been doing this for years and years. We get NHD alums who just love the program so much that they want to keep coming back and doing this over and over and giving back to the program. So it's a really, really fun event. And at the end of the day, it's just exciting to see everyone so happy and wanting to come back again. So anything I missed or any questions about state contest?
Yeah, I don't think that any of us missed anything. I just, from a teacher standpoint, I know that it's the most fun I have had as a history teacher. And that's not just because I'm a panelist here. Like it's taught me so much. It's helped me connect with the kids better. It's seeing them shine in something that they didn't even know that they could be good at. I think that Missouri is very blessed to have teachers here that prioritize NHD in this contest, because it does hit an element of students that we don't always see get to shine. Not the sports kids, not the choir kids or the band kids. These are your probably quiet, reserved, introverted kids who will sit down with some nonfiction books and flip through to find one quote to put on their exhibit board. And it's just so fun and rewarding to watch. So, if this makes it to an audience of teachers who are kind of on the brink and they don't really know if they should do it or bring it up, I mean, there's still time to get your kids involved and pick a topic and research it and get a project put together. So, and I always reach out to Danielle or myself or Sadie or regional coordinators if you have questions, even if it seems like it's an insignificant question. I feel like we all got to learn somehow, and asking each other is the best way to do that.
Angie, I love that. I was just totally going to add to it that, I mean, yes, I think that if you're on the fence, email us and come to History Day. Come to the regional contest. Go to your regional contest, and you'll see the teachers who have years of experience who are doing it, or teachers who are there for the first time doing it. But more importantly, like, you'll see the smiles after the judging, right? Like Angie, like what you were talking about earlier, you're gonna see those kids walking out. You're gonna see those kids who someone wants to talk about a topic that they know about finally, right? Because like how, they finally get to share it. And this is a wonderful school sponsored event. So come, like if you're on the fence and you want to see what contests are like, I will speak for the Kansas City district and say, email us. And you can come and I don't know, see the joy. Is that see the joy, see the hard work, see that, yeah, it feels like pandemonium at times, but it's like organized pandemonium, right? That's exciting.
Yeah, and one of the best ways to find out what History Day is all about is to volunteer to judge. I didn't know what History Day was about until I judged, and I just never left after that.
It absolutely is addicting. And I've judged and I've been a teacher, and I've been the first year person who had to look up and to remember what NHD stood for. So, but really once you guys do this, once teachers, kind of commit to the process and students also commit to the process, like it'll be something that they'll remember forever. And I learned something new about a topic I thought I knew about. I learn something new every time. It's just so fun.
All right. Well, thank you, Angie and Sadie, for joining me on this panel today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope this was helpful. And we look forward to seeing you in contest season. And we hope that you join us for NHD. Thank you.